When Sylvia Garcia asked Scott Bessent a simple question, "Do you know the poverty rate in this country?" his answer revealed more than he probably intended. What followed was a sharp exchange exposing the real divide in economic priorities: tax cuts for the wealthy versus support for struggling families.
A woman from Texas, Ms. Garcia, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the Secretary for being with us today. I want to start first by just clarifying your testimony and its delivery. Why did you ask for your witness statement to be embargoed until this morning?
Sorry, pardon me?
Your testimony reads right at the very top, embargoed until delivery, which means that we didn't follow the usual practice of this committee of getting the testimony 24 hours in advance so that committee members can review it and prepare for questions. Yours was posted at 10:01. The committee was at 10. Well, it looks like you need...
My staff is just telling me that it's standard practice.
It's your standard practice? It's not our standard practice as a committee.
I'm told that it was standard practice.
Okay, you were told by whom, sir?
So my comms team and legislative affairs team working with the committee.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think for the record, I think you should clarify to the gentleman that that is not our standard. And I know that at least I didn't know anything about this until I got it here. And I don't think our committee staff on the Democratic side was notified that we would be getting all your testimony late. I just wondered, why you had made that request, and clearly at the top, embargoed until delivery.
Well, embargo to delivery, I think that was mostly meant for the press.
We're not press, sir. We're the members of Congress that have oversight. So, Mr. Chairman, I would hope that you not condone this kind of late submission. It just doesn't help, frankly, for some of the atmosphere that's created when we all just sit down and we still don't have your testimony. Well, then, we just sort of don't feel really good about that. It's not our custom and practice.
Congresswoman, I appreciate the importance that you put on my statement.
Well, thank you. Notice it's important, sir. Do you know what the poverty rate is in our country?
I believe that the poverty level is a fixed number.
No, do you know the poverty rate in this country?
I believe it is in the teens.
In the teens, okay. Well, it's about a little over 11%. It just strikes me that most of all of your testimony is always about the tax cuts and cutting costs, and it's always about tax cuts, and it's always about the rich. But nothing is ever said about poor, other than you suggesting that you worked yourself
no, ma'am. No tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime.
Sir, I read your testimony. That's not anywhere in here.
Deductibility.
That is not in here, sir.
Deductibility.
I am referring to your
loans.
testimony and what I've listened to. I said right up front, I can see you and I can hear you. You've not said one thing about what we're doing to help the poor. In fact,
none of your colleagues
even when we were talking about the car seats, that impacts poor people more than anyone else, because not only can they usually not even afford a car seat and have to go to a garage sale to find one, now it's going to be even higher. Your president is suggesting that he wants to give a $5,000 bonus to women to have babies, and then what? Just leave them out on the cold alone? No car seat, no food, no Medicaid, no
Congresswoman,
chip program?
I can tell you the worst.
And I'm asking you right now, sir.
The worst thing for working families will be the expiration of the 2017
As Secretary of Treasurer,
Tax
it's not
Cuts and
just
Job
about
Act.
the inflation rate. It's not just about the GDP. It's also about making sure that we keep the poverty rate in this country low. There are people who are living in poverty that never have lived in poverty before. You also failed to say here, you say unemployment remains low. I mean, the Senate should have read unemployment went up.
Ma'am,
because it did.
Under the Biden administration,
And the growth administration, we're not talking about Biden, sir. We're talking about your testimony here today about the current president and his plans. Because I can tell you, I'm from Houston. I'm concerned too about some of the terrorism on energy. You know, we have done a lot to increase trade in Houston, construction, everything after the pandemic. And all things were growing. Everything has been growing. But now that the Trump tariffs have surfaced, it is threatening Houston's economy. I represent the area where almost the entire ship channel is in. The petrochemical companies all are in my district. The port is in my district. Everybody is trying to figure out what the hell we're going to do.
Mr. Chairman,
Ranking member.
I ask unanimous consent to enter.
What we just witnessed was Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia pressing Scott Bessent with some of the most fundamental, yet deeply revealing, questions about economic policy and priorities. Notice how she starts not with some obscure economic theory, but with something as basic and human as the poverty rate in America. When she asked him if he even knew the percentage of Americans living in poverty, his hesitation spoke volumes. He guessed it was in the teens. The actual rate is about 11%. That difference may seem small to some, but the gap shows us something larger, that the very people shaping and defending economic policies don't always have a clear grasp of the lived realities of millions of struggling families. Garcia then cuts straight to the heart of the matter. While Republicans like Bessent and Trump talk endlessly about tax cuts, deregulation, and economic growth on paper, very little is said about the poor. And that's the divide here. Policies that sound good to wealthy donors or corporations don't always translate to security for working-class Americans. As Garcia points out, something as simple as a car seat, a basic safety requirement for families with children, can be out of reach for low-income households. And when those prices rise, it's not billionaires who suffer, it's parents trying to keep their kids safe on the way to school or daycare. Then there's the so-called baby bonus idea, offering a one-time $5,000 incentive for women to have children. Garcia drives home a critical question. What happens after the baby is born? Do families get ongoing support with health care, child care, or education? Or are they simply left to struggle with no Medicaid, no safety net, and no plan for the long haul? That's the deeper tension in this exchange. A flashy policy headline versus the real costs of raising a child in America, especially for families already living paycheck to paycheck. And let's not overlook Garcia's point about Houston and trade. She represents a district where the port, petrochemical industries, and international trade are lifelines for the local economy. The tariffs imposed under Trump's policies don't just hit abstract GDP numbers, they ripple through communities, threatening jobs, threatening growth, and undermining stability in places like Houston, where working families rely on trade to put food on the table. What Sylvia Garcia is doing here is reframing the conversation away from slogans about growth and tax cuts toward the very real question, who actually benefits and who is left behind? It's a reminder that when we talk about the economy, we aren't just talking about numbers. We're talking about people. Families trying to buy groceries, workers trying to pay the rent, parents trying to keep their kids safe and healthy. And that's why exchanges like this matter. They cut through the political spin and remind us that leadership is about priorities. Is the focus on protecting billionaires and corporations? Or is it on ensuring that the 11% of Americans living in poverty and the millions more who are just one paycheck away from it actually have a fair shot? This is exactly why oversight matters, and why voices like Garcia's are so critical in these hearings. They force those in power to confront realities they'd rather ignore. If you found this breakdown helpful, make sure you subscribe to Left Lens. We'll keep unpacking these exchanges so you don't just see the drama, but also understand the stakes for families, for communities, and for the future of our democracy.